welcome to this WBC Championship telecast presented by Dove Men Plus Care. Tonight, we are, as we said earlier, in San Francisco. The Dominican Republic, favored in this matchup, undefeated in the tournament, taking on Puerto Rico to determine the 2013 WBC champions. Back with Jim Cott, I'm Bob Costas. Now, as we said, the Dominican Republic overall, if these two squads were to play a full season in the same division, undoubtedly the Dominican Republic would finish ahead of Puerto Rico. But baseball is unlike other sports when you talk about single game matchups. After all, Italy played baseball-rich nations close earlier in this tournament. And as Angel Pagan put it, names don't necessarily win baseball games. We proved it last year with the Giants winning the World Series. We'd like to prove it again tonight.
Well, and we've certainly seen that. You mentioned Italy and the Netherlands coming up, beating Cuba. So in this knockout type format, even though the Dominican Republic is loaded with all-stars and star major leaguers, Puerto Rico has held their own and made it all the way to the final game.
Well, when we talk about all-stars and top major leaguers, we're not talking about tonight's pitching pairing, which is part of what makes this intriguing in its own way.
Well, as we look at tonight's starters, brought to you by Dove Men Plus Care, we're going to get a look at 35-year-old Giancarlo Alvarado. Never pitched in the big leagues. That's his numbers. In the World Baseball Classic, he pitched in Japan. He is really looking forward to this challenge tonight, carrying the flag of his country on his back. Samuel Deduno pitches for the Minnesota Twins. If he gets the ball in the strike zone, he has about as much movement on his pitches and is unhittable as any pitcher in this classic.
He had 15 starts last year for the Twins, went 6-5, ERA about 4.5. He has a spot on their roster, but he is not assured a spot on their opening day roster. He's with them in spring training. So as is the case for a number of players in this tournament, this is also an audition for possible big league jobs.
No question. There's a lot of these players looking for exposure with the scouts in the stands, hoping that if they pitch well tonight, in the case of Deduno and Alvarado, they'll get a big league contract or at least a tryout.
With additional thoughts on tonight's pitchers, here's Tom Verducci.
Well, that's right. This tournament began with 16 teams and plenty of international star power. 7 former MVPs, 5 former batting champions, and 1 former Cy Young winner. But it's one of the charms of the tournament that right next to the All-Stars, you get the baseball dreamers and the baseball lifers. And in fact, the spotlight is on 2 of those tonight. Samuel Deduno and Giancarlo Alvarado have combined to pitch 26 professional seasons for 10 different organizations, and combined they have 6 major league wins, all of them by Deduno. Tonight the portfolio doesn't matter. All that matters is they get the ball, what most likely is the biggest game of their lives.
All right, Tom, thanks. You can pick out lots of examples. Nelson Figueroa at age 38, pitched in AAA a year ago, previously a big leaguer. He threw 6 shutout innings against the United States only several days ago. You don't necessarily have to be a superstar to win a single game, even a big game in baseball. We'll see what comes up next. We give you the lineups and get to the first pitch. Championship game from San Francisco is next. Welcome back to the WBC Championship game presented by Dove Men Plus Care with Jim Cott and Tom Verducci. I'm Bob Costas, and it has begun to rain, not heavily, but there has been rain in the forecast since last night. And this game will be played under regular season rules. It does not have to be played to a 9-inning conclusion, as would be the case in a World Series, for example. If the home team, in this case the Dominican Republic, is leading after 4.5, or the visitors Puerto Rico after 5 full, and they can't continue after that, that will be that.
Yeah, and you hate to see a championship decided like that, but these teams, players in these teams, have to get back to their major league teams, and thus those kinds of rules are in effect for tonight's game.
Here's a look.
Samuel Doduno. Quite a story. 15 starts with the Minnesota Twins, 6 wins. And when you see him pitch and see the movement on his pitches, probably from our center field camera, even he doesn't know where it's going. And if he gets it in the strike zone, you hate to say that a guy is literally unhittable, but he is that kind of pitcher that's capable of no-hitting a team.
Well, in 2 starts in this WBC, he has a victory and a no decision and an ERA of 1.13. He started against Team USA last Friday, threw 4 innings, gave up 5 hits and 1 earned run, walked 2 and struck out 7 in a no decision.
Tony Pena with his pitching coach Bill Castro right there, and both managers will, you mentioned it's beginning to drizzle, and with the regular season rules in effect, it's always important to score first, but particularly against the Dominican Republic, you want to score first. As you see, their 7-0 record because their bullpen has dominated this event, and both managers are going to look to get that first run on the board should it be a rain-shortened game.
And for Angel Pagan, a warm welcome on a chilly night in San Francisco. Pagan hitting a robust .367 in the WBC. Last year led the National League with 15 triples. This is a quirky ballpark. The deepest dimension is to right center, 421. So if a ball is hit in the gap, especially in that direction, you can run a while. That leads to a lot of triples. Duno's first pitch is high and away. The plate umpire is Ted Barrett, who works in the major leagues. Half of the 6 umps are major league umpires, and the other half are from international backgrounds.
And you mentioned the dimensions of AT&T Park. Our good friends and colleagues that occupy this booth when the Giants play, Mike Krukow and Dwayne Kuiper, called that Triples Alley.
That one's down and in, 2-0. Nelson Cruz in right field has Pagan played way off the line. All kinds of room between Cruz and the 309 sign in right. 309 down the right field line, 339 to left, 399 to straightaway center, 421 to that alley in right center.
And unlike previous games, last 2 nights, just a gentle breeze tonight at AT&T Park.
And the 3-1 pitch is lined hard to right, falls in front of Cruz. Leadoff hit for Pagan. He has stolen a couple of bases in the WBC, and there's been a lot of small ball played in this tournament.
And I would look for that to be the case right now. Got a 3-1 fastball, middle in, ready for it. And that immediately sets up a possibility of Falou trying to drop down a sacrifice bunt. Hanley Ramirez certainly looking for it.
Creeping in at third. No sign of the bunt. Called strike. Falou played 24 games with the Royals last season. Made the most of that opportunity, hitting .341. He's a switch hitter like Pagan, who preceded him, and Beltran, who will follow him. So the first 3 in the order for Puerto Rico hit from both sides of the plate. The Dominican Republic is the home team tonight by virtue of its better overall record in the tournament, which includes 2 victories head-to-head against Puerto Rico. There's the bunt, but it's foul.
Yeah, and a very poor attempt by Falou there. If you're going to sacrifice, you get the bat out in front of the plate and give yourself up. He almost bunted at that.
Actually,
like he
missed it.
Yeah,
I thought
like he was bunting
it
for a base hit. And any time the barrel of the bat is below the ball and the bat is behind you, you have very little chance of bunting it into fair territory on the ground.
Beltran, the DH tonight, awaiting his turn. A little tapper. It stays fair, and there's the out at first with Pagan moving up.
Let's check out the defense behind Samuel Deduno for Team Dominicana. Moises Sierra in center, Alejandro Diaza in center, Sierra's in left, Nelson Cruz over in right, Henry Ramirez, Jose Reyes on the left side of the infield, Robinson Cano with a couple of Gold Gloves at second, Edwin Encarnacion at first, Carlos Santana does the catching.
Jose Reyes chatting with Angel Pagan as Beltran settles into the box. He has played in all 3 WBCs to date, hitting just .207 in this one without a home run. Fouled away. He is, as you know, one of the great postseason performers ever. A .363 playoff and World Series hitter with 14 homers in 34 postseason games. Throw in 11 stolen bases in October as well.
If there were ever a postseason where one player parlayed a good week into hefty contracts, it was the postseason he had in the Houston Astros.
And on to the Mets from there.
Yes.
The 1-1 pitch. Off speed and in there, 1-2. Beltran's Cardinal teammate Yadier Molina waits on deck. Got him swinging for the second out.
Well, you see a hitter like Beltran swinging at a pitch this far out of the strike zone, it gives you an idea of the natural stuff that Sammy Deduno has.
So here's Molina at .304 in the tournament. 4-time All-Star, 5-time Gold Glover, and has done his usual masterful job handling this Puerto Rican pitching staff, which is really not terribly deep, not loaded with major league quality performers, but he's kind of coaxed them through.
Boy, coaxed and carried. I mean, he puts a finger down, they throw it. There's no shaking off. And in addition to being a great catcher, Bob, I think what he has really become known for as well, he's been a very good RBI guy. His average may not be among the league leaders, but with men on base, he's been very productive during his career.
Pagan, who opened the game with a single, is at second now with 2 out. Deduno ahead of Molina, 0-2. Curveball, caught him looking. Well, he does have some interesting stuff if he can control it. Yachty saying, where was it? It was in there. There's your answer. Half an inning gone by, no score. Here's a look at the Dominican Republic Subway starting lineup. Packed with stars, and that despite the fact that the likes of Pujols and Jose Bautista and Adrian Beltre took a pass. Just as big stars from other countries did the same. Many from the United States. Ichiro didn't make it for Japan. Neither did Darvish or Kuroda. Not everybody accepts the invitation, but still, Dominican Republic pretty well stocked.
And the pitcher that has to face that lineup, 35-year-old Giancarlo Alvarado. This is numbers with Yokohama last year in the Japanese League.
He's 35 years old, 6'4" and 210, from Santurce, Puerto Rico, and his 1-1 to Reyes is hit hard and deep to right. Back goes Alex Rios, turning, and it's off the wall. To second is Reyes, and he slides in safely there. So a leadoff double, and already trying to ignite the crowd.
Oh, it doesn't take him long. I think to a man, Team Dominicana has said they have had more fun for these last 2 weeks. There's a pitch in the center of the plate, and Reyes centers it. Off the wall. Rios plays it, and Reyes has a sliding double to start things for the Dominican.
Not far from making it over over that Levi's Landing sign and into that first row of seats. Didn't miss a homer by all that much. High off the wall. So here's the switch hitter, Eric Ibar of the Angels. Hitting .278 in the tournament. Squares and lays down a nice bunt. To third is Reyes as Gonzalez throws Ibar out.
Now that's how you bunt. Well done.
Ibar's already played an important role in this series. A pinch hit single off Craig Kimbrell of the USA, the Atlanta Braves closer, in the 9th inning of what was then a tie game, which the Dominican Republic won 3-1 last Thursday night.
You see Ibar turns around, has the bat out in front of the plate, gives himself up. Only one play for Gonzalez at third.
Teams do not sacrifice as much as they used to in past generations, and yet even playing in the American League, Ibar has nearly 50 sacrifice bunts over the last 5 years. Excellent bat handling.
That's been a useful tool here for all teams in the World Baseball Classic. Pleasant exchange between Molina and Cano, and they're going to walk Robinson Cano with Edwin Encarnacion on deck. That's how critical it is to keep that first run off the board.
Now, they walked him intentionally each of his last 2 times at bat last night against the Netherlands. Here's Encarnacion on deck. He had 42 homers and 110 RBIs a year ago for Toronto, and yet they want no part of Cano, who's hitting .517 in the tournament with a couple of homers.
And if his Yankee teammates keep going down because of injury the way they are, he'll see a lot of this during the season. Leads the World Baseball Classic in hits, as you saw, with 15.
Age and injuries have taken the Yankees out of that favorites role in the American League East. So Cano, as you mentioned, might not have all that much protection around him in the lineup, and it is his free agent year. They're still dickering about a contract. He turned down the Yankees' first offer. So if that goes through the season, his performance will mean either plus or minus dollars. It's going to be large dollars no matter what, but give or take.
Saw in your picture briefly there Ricky Bonas, the Puerto Rican pitching coach, holding up first finger, which means look out on the first pitch. Probably be a breaking ball.
Back looking for the double play outside for ball 1.
There's Ricky in your picture on the left of manager Edwin Rodriguez.
Center field toward right center. On the run is Pagan. He's not going to be able to get there. It'll go all the way to the wall. 1 run will come home, and then 2. Cano around third to score, and the strategy backfires. They walk him intentionally, and Encarnacion, with his first extra base hit of the entire tournament, brings home 2.
Well, they've dominated this tournament so far. They've done it with their pitching, but now their offense gets going. A flat slider from Alvarado, and Encarnacion drives it to the wall in right center. A 2-run lead is important for just about any team, but when you give the Dominican team a 2-run lead early with their bullpen, you're in big trouble already.
Rude reception for Hanley Ramirez, which has little to do with Hanley and everything to do with the fact that shortly he'll trade the uniform of the Dominican Republic in for the Dodger uniform. Bitter rivals of the Giants. You look at Giancarlo Alvarado and you consider his background. He was 1-6 a year ago in 8 starts with the Yokohama Bay Starts. Yokohama is the worst team in the 6-team Central League in Japan, and they released him. And he's starting this game for his native country, Puerto Rico, with the WBC title on the line.
And those familiar that have followed the Classic know about pitch limits and when pitchers are eligible to pitch again. Nelson Figueroa, who did such a great job against Team USA, would not be eligible to pitch until tomorrow. He would be the logical starter they'd like to use. So Alvarado really is a third or fourth choice on the depth chart. Iram Burgess, promising young pitcher, beginning to loosen up in the Puerto Rican bullpen already.
Ball fouled back to the screen and bat down the third base line.
Both Ricky Bonas and Edwin Rodriguez speaking very highly of Burgess. They wanted to give the start obviously to Alvarado, but it won't be long before you'll see the young right-hander in there if he doesn't get out of this jam right here.
In the WBC, Alvarado has done pretty well statistically. 1-0, ERA 2.16, but his 2 starts were against Spain and then Italy. He beat Spain, no decision against the Italians. And his 2-2 coming to Ramirez. Alvarado trying to limit the damage. The only man he has retired was Ibar on a sacrifice bunt. Doubles by Reyes and Encarnacion, and an intentional walk to Cano mixed in. Full count. Alvarado was signed by the Pirates back in 1995, but he has never made a major league appearance. He has more than 400 appearances in the minors, in various independent leagues, and in Japan, but has never pitched in a major league game. And his 3-2 to Ramirez. In the air to shallow center. Make it right center now, with Rios drifting over to make the catch. So here's the right fielder, Nelson Cruz. Like Carlos Beltran, one of his opponents tonight, he has a glowing postseason history. 14 homers in 34 career postseason games, including 6 homers in the 2011 ALCS for the Rangers. And yet the thing for which he is probably most remembered is perhaps misplaying the fly ball off the bat of David Freese with 2 out in the bottom of the 9th in Game 6 of that year's World Series. It turned into a triple, prolonged the game, and the Cardinals came back to win that one and the next night.
It's another one of those examples, Bob, of all the statistics that are available in our game. How many home runs, RBIs, things like that. But it's those simple plays that you just referred to that determine who wins and who loses most of the time.
Alvarado's 2-0 to Cruz. It skips away, and skipping on to third is Encarnacion.
Well, let's see. Don't see that very often. The ball getting away from Yadier Molina. Tried to, I don't know if he tried to backhand it and had his eye on the base runner at the same time. That's not usually Yadi's style. He'll get his body out there and block that pitch. That was unusually sort of a complacent attempt by him.
See if Cruz is swinging on 3-0. It gets the outside corner. The catcher, Carlos Santana, is on deck. In on his fists and popped up into foul ground. Andy Gonzalez puts an end to the bottom of the first. This World Baseball Classic Championship telecast is presented by Dove Men Plus Care. Care for what matters, and by Cisco. Tomorrow starts here. And Subway, the official training restaurant of Mike Trout, Ryan Howard, and athletes everywhere. Staked to a 2-0 lead, Samuel DeDuno faces Mike Aviles in the top of the second. He lifts one back to the plate. Santana has
it. See Mike Aviles shaking his head. He has one of the 2 home runs that Team Puerto Rico has hit. The other one by Alex Rios, stepping in right now. So when you lack that kind of power, it makes it even more difficult to come back even from a 2-0 deficit against this Dominican pitching staff.
Rios hadn't done much in the WBC until the semifinal game the other night against Japan, when he snapped out of it by going 2 for 4 with that home run. Wow. 0-2.
Well, if there's any question about Samuel DeDuno's control so far, it's spot on. Watch that front knee. You see, we call it the jelly leg. You see Alex Rios, that front knee just kind of gave way a little bit.
You think Ron Gardenhire and Terry Ryan are paying attention to what's happening tonight, at least so far?
They know what they have here if they can get him to throw the kind of pitches he's thrown here in the early going.
He's 29 years old, so he's been around a while. 6'3", 190 from La Romana in the Dominican Republic. His 1-2 pitch to Rios got him swinging for his 3rd strikeout.
Looked like another good break. It's tough to tell whether it was a curveball or a changeup, because all of his pitches have so much movement. Curveball. And I think he knows, too, the security of the pitchers he has behind him. That was a changeup. Yep, you could see by the grip it had the same break as a curveball. You know, most through the naked eye you'd say that was a curveball. When you saw that grip where almost the entire hand was around it, that's an indication it was a change of speeds. I'd love to have a changeup with that kind of movement. And the security factor is that Tony Pena has said, no, none of this if I got the lead after 7. If I have the lead in 3rd or 4th, and I have to, he's got Dotel, he's got Pedro Strop, he's got Fernando Rodney. Got a handful of power pitchers he can go to. So they probably told Samuel, just throw as many strikes as you can, as quickly as you can, and we'll get to that bullpen. So far he's doing it.
A bit of a drizzle at the outset of the game. That has disappeared, at least for the time being.
And that's a factor too for those who were with us from the start. We're playing it under regular season rules, so it could be a rain shortened game if the predictions are true that it's supposed to begin to rain quite heavily.
4 strikeouts for DeDuno, 2 in each of his first 2 frames. Welcome back to the WBC Championship game presented by Dove Men Plus Care with Jim Cott and Tom Vernucci. I'm Bob Costas. Well, Edwin Rodriguez taking no chances after a very shaky first inning from Giancarlo Alvarado. He immediately goes to his bullpen, and here is Iram Borges, who has not allowed an earned run in 8 1/3 innings of work in this WBC. In fact, pitched 3 2/3 scoreless innings out of the bullpen in a win in Puerto Rico's first elimination game in this tournament against Italy.
And when you look at those numbers last year combined, Class A, AA, AAA, very impressive.
First man he'll face is Carlos Santana. Switching catcher with the Indians. They got him from the Dodgers in a deal a few years ago for Casey Blake. Blake was a useful veteran, but that is no doubt a deal the Dodgers regret.
Probably like the Doyle Alexander for John Smoltz, our colleague.
Maybe not quite, but
back at 8. Of course, that helped the Tigers
at the time, sure.
87, but the Braves got a Hall of Fame starter and reliever in that deal. Ricky Bonas, Puerto Rican pitching coach, no swing on that pitch. There's Ricky. Said, you're going to hear about this kid. 25. He's got 4 pitches. He's not overpowering, but as you saw by his numbers at AA, AAA, earned run average combined under 2.
Two balls and 2 strikes to Carlos Santana.
That looked like a change-up, and it was. You know, a lot of the Latin American players that have pitched some in winter ball have much better command of their off-speed pitches. Over here in spring training, the pitchers are just beginning to develop those. These guys been using it all winter.
Chopper, fair ball. Rivera over to Borges covering.
Well, in addition to Carlos Rivera at first, let's check out the rest of the defense for Team Puerto Rico. Around the outfield, they have Jesus Feliciano, Angel Pagan, and Alex Rios. Andy Gonzalez, Mike Aviles, Irving Falou, and Carlos Rivera, and of course the gold standard Gold Glover Yadier Molina behind the plate. Friendly exchanges between these two teams, even though there's quite the rivalry between the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico for baseball supremacy.
Here's Moises Sierra. Swings on the first pitch. Skies it to center. It sends Pagan to the edge of the warning track for the catch.
He was an impact player last night for Team Dominican. Moises Sierra with a great catch. And the first RBI for them to tie the game last night against the Netherlands.
Remember, the Blue Jays came up to the big club late last year. And now here's the White Sox, Alejandro Diaz. Ted Barrett, the plate umpire, seems to have a generous strike zone tonight, which should move things along.
This entire classic, I don't think they're using the Questec or the electronic Big Brother looking at the home plate umpires. The zone has been rather liberal.
Rolled foul, 0-2. Iram Borges out of the bullpen now for Puerto Rico. As Kitty mentioned, pitched at all 3 levels in the Brewers organization last year, A, AA, and AAA, and appears to have a future, and it may be in the near future, in the big leagues with Milwaukee.
Be a rare, outstanding pitcher under 6 feet. Pedro Martinez, one of those. Nowadays, it seems like last night we saw 7'1" Luke Van Meel from the Netherlands. Nowadays, it's tough to get signed if you're less than 6'3". Here's Burgess at 5'11". Think of Mike Boddicker. Successful with the Red Sox and Orioles, but very rare successful pitcher in the big leagues less than 6 feet.
Bounced up there, but he swings and misses. They've got to complete it by throwing to Rivera at first. And Borges comes out of the bullpen and restores some order with a perfect bottom of the second. 2-0 Dominican Republic. Well, Harold Reynolds trusts his baseball instincts. Brian Kenny favors stats, and that's an understatement. Now, old school battles new school every weekday at 4 Eastern on MLB Now, premiering April 3rd with a sneak preview April 1st at 8 on MLB Network. Can't beat the vista in and around AT&T Park. Fastball right at 90 for strike 1 to Andy Gonzalez. Jim Cott said at the beginning of the game, Samuel DeDuno has excellent stuff. The question is, can he control it? Thus far, the answer to that question has been yes. And a nice play by Carlos Santana to retire Gonzalez. Let's check in with Tom Verducci.
It's been very interesting watching catcher Carlos Santana set up in the catcher's box as if those chalk lines are electrified. That's because he's using the same strategy that Joe Mauer does when he catches DeDuno for the Twins, and that is set up in the middle of the plate, let his fastball do whatever it wants to do. Even ahead of the count, catchers most times will set up outside the zone. Santana, even at 0-2 earlier, would stay in the middle of the plate and let the fastball do what it wants to do. Now Ryan Doman, another catcher for the Twins, compared Duno's fastball to a 92-mile-an-hour knuckleball because the movement is so unpredictable.
What a concept that is. I mean, that's what catchers should be doing more of with young pitchers, even if they don't have the natural stuff that Duno has.
1-1 to Feliciano is down and in.
It's painful to see sometimes with young, inexperienced pitchers, and catchers will move to the outside corner as if they have pinpoint control like Greg Maddux. And they're much better served like this, like Tom is saying with Santana. He'll move a little bit.
That one is by the diving Ramirez for a one-out single.
Nice at bat there by Feliciano. The pitch diving low and away. And instead of trying to pull it, with Ramirez playing in shallow, slaps it the other way and gets Pagan to the plate.
Ooh, looks like he jammed his throwing hand as he hit the turf, trying to shake it off. As Pagan stepped in, had a solid single to right to open the game. Ramirez creeping in at third once again, blocked by Santana. Feliciano aboard at first with a single. This WBC is not his first taste of international competition. He was the bat boy for Puerto Rico in both the 1988 and 1992 Olympic Games.
We talked about the passion of both these teams, and you referred to Feliciano being a bat boy back with the Puerto Rican Olympic teams, but there's the good movement again of Duno. Pagan thought it was high, but it was just a little above the belt. A lot of these players on both of these teams have played now in their third WBC, so they have come to understand the intense competition and how passionate teams and countries are about it. I think that's what was a surprise to a lot of the United States players that played in it for the first time. They didn't really realize how intense. Nice pitch again there. Good movement outside corner.
One and two to Pagan, with Feliciano at first and one out, and Felu on deck. Held up. They check at third, but the count levels at 2-2. Duno starting in this championship game for a Dominican Republic squad that started Edinson Volquez, the former Red, now with the Padres last night in their win over the Netherlands. Johnny Cueto, the best Dominican-born pitcher presently active, was held out of the WBC by the Reds, concerned about his rehab from an oblique injury sustained during the playoffs last year. A little roller foul. So no Johnny Cueto. And then you think about these Dominican-born pitchers who have had their moments, who have all been all-stars in recent years, all 30 or younger, but have fallen off considerably in recent years. Francisco Liriano, Irvin Santana, Ubaldo Jimenez, all of them had ERAs upwards of 5 a year ago. All theoretically could have been on this pitching staff. Full count, it gets away, and Feliciano takes off. No throw from Santana.
Yeah, Santana's he's had a workout back there with all the movement on Duno's pitches, and now some of them getting away. Watch him move his body, shifts it over, tries his best to turn the glove over and block it, and then realizes no chance to get Feliciano. Good reaction by Feliciano once he sees the ball get away. Knows he can make it into second base easily.
Scored, of course, has a wild pitch. So now Pagan with a chance to pull his team a run closer with a base hit. Rolls it weakly toward Cano. And there's the second out.
Well, Bob, you mentioned all the Dominican pitchers that have kind of gone downhill last few years, and right here in San Francisco, the first name that comes to mind is the Dominican dandy, Juan Marichal.
Still the only Dominican-born player in the Hall of Fame, but that will change as others become eligible, including Pedro Martinez. Hit sharply, but it's gloved by Deduno, and Puerto Rico is turned away. Jose Reyes will lead off in the Dominican half of the third. We've got him wired tonight.
¡Plátano! ¡Viene, pero ahí, pero ahí! ¡Viene, que joseo! ¡Eso es! ¡Ey! ¡Ey, pero ahí! ¡Así mismo!
Top of the order in the third inning for the Dominican Republic. Jose Reyes led off the bottom of the first with a long double off the wall and right, and scored ahead of Robinson Cano on a two-run double a while later from Edwin Encarnacion. Puerto Rican contingent and some in front of them with different rooting interests. And then a neutral party at the end of the aisle wearing a Giants hat, so you really can't tell where he's coming from.
And they had the Rally Plantain with them there, one of the fans. Fernando Rodney probably has that down the dugout somewhere.
2-2 to Reyes, who, as we told you, is mic'd tonight.
Check, check. 1-2, microphone check. 1, 2 hands. Got it, boy. 2.
Apparently enjoying the experience. Left field, Feliciano. So now here's Eric Ibar, who laid down a perfect sacrifice bunt in the first. Supposed to rain off and on through the night. It was raining at the very start of the game, very briefly and lightly. It has stopped and it hasn't returned yet. But apparently these folks have not gotten the word, or they just want to be prepared for when it starts again. That's going to drop in for a hit. 1 out single for Ibar. Well, now first base is occupied, so I doubt that they'd be brazen or foolish enough to walk Cano in this situation, as they used to in this ballpark from time to time with Barry Bonds.
Nice situation for Robinson Cano, man on first. That really opens up that hole between first and second. But he's been using the entire field here with this hit show he's put on at the WBC.
Hard to imagine when you look at this 4-time All-Star, probably the best second baseman of the game, all things considered now, and the way he's hitting in this tournament, that he went a combined 3 for 40 in the ALDS against the Orioles and ALCS against the Tigers last year. Of course, the whole Yankee lineup fell apart, but Cano just 3 for 40. Close, got him. Ibar picked off.
Great move. Quick feet. Yes, and Bob, you and I will remember this name, but a lot of fans out there won't. But Steve Busby from the Kansas City Royals, I think Buzz is currently announcing for the Texas Rangers. They clearly had him. He had the best pickoff move I've seen for a right-hand pitcher, and the key to it, is quick feet.
So now with the bases empty, the 0-1 to Cano sails high and wide.
Sweep tag by Rivera and got it on the shoulder of Ibar before he got his right arm in there.
And now, in fact, it has started raining once again, and a bit harder than it was a while ago. Turning away from it, makes contact and fouls it off.
You mentioned the numbers for Robinson Cano postseason play, and that happens so often. And sometimes people, you know, they say, "Well, boy, he just didn't produce in the postseason." That's where you're seeing your best pitchers. That's where stats can be so deceptive. You can make a living hitting off those number 4 and 5 starters during the season, but when it comes down to postseason, you're looking at Verlander and pitchers of that caliber.
Poke the opposite way. Feliciano tracks it down. 3 in the books. Rain falling. It could be an official game if this score holds after as little as 4.5. It's 2-0 Dominican Republic after 3. I guess the guy with his back to us is the coxswain. Pull, make your way through McCovey Cove, but be mindful that this copyrighted telecast presented by authority of World Baseball Classic Incorporated may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without express written consent. Part of the order for the Puerto Rican squad in the top of the 4th, Beltran, Molina, and Aviles. Rain falling steadily now.
Yeah, the challenge for Sammy Deduno, he knows that. Everyone does. They have a lead. They want to get 2 more innings in, but you don't want to rush so much that you disrupt your pitching motion. You'd like to just get it and throw as many strikes as quickly as you can. You can begin to see the rain even on your screen.
To Beltran, who struck out swinging his first time up. He walks him on 4 pitches. The first walk he's yielded as we go downstairs to check with Tom.
Well, guys, as you know, in these double elimination games, baseball tradition is all hands on deck when it comes to pitcher availability. Not quite the case tonight because of pitcher rules that we have in this tournament. They want to protect the pitchers. Here, the pitcher's not available because of pitch count restrictions. Those are all starting pitchers for Puerto Rico, so their bullpen is in pretty good shape. For the Dominican Republic, also a couple of starting pitchers not available.
And a strike to
The important
Molina.
one for the Dominican, the important one there you see at the bottom, Kelvin Herrera out of their bullpen through 32 pitches and is not available. He is a relief pitcher, but Tony Pena, the manager, has terrific depth in that bullpen. Through this tournament, the Dominican has outscored opponents after the 4th inning, 20-3.
Down to first, they get 1, and the return makes it 2.
And Jim Cott, you know that we talked to Tony Pena the other day, and he talked about not being afraid to go to his bullpen as early as the 4th and the 5th inning because he does have so many choices in that bullpen.
Boy, and Tom, what a big play that was. Sharply hit in Encarnacion. Just, you know, it's much more difficult for a right-handed first baseman. Makes the pivot, gives Reyes an accurate throw, and just like that, when it looked like Deduno was losing control a bit, he gets 2 quick outs.
So the 3-6-3 double play changes the tone of this 4th inning and brings up Aviles with nobody aboard and 2 out. He fouled out his first time. It's raining so hard now that you'd stop a regular season game.
You might. They've had, I think they had one of the NLCS here last year with heavy rain or near the end of the season.
Yeah, it was right at the end, and the Giants had a big lead over the Cardinals. They didn't want to stop it. It was a downpour, but they just wanted to complete the game, the outcome of which wasn't in doubt. But if this were a game in June or July, just in the middle of the season. You wouldn't necessarily cancel the game, but you can wait. There'd be a delay.
And of course, umpires are in constant contact with the ground crews who have radar at their disposal. They can usually give them an idea of what to expect, whether it's going to rain for 30 minutes or thereabouts and pass through. And obviously, in the case of this game, they want to try to play through it and make it an official game without jeopardizing injuries to the players.
And that's a nightmare situation. Major league organizations are by and large happy with having their players take part in the WBC. I wouldn't say it's unanimous. By and large they are, but they're all holding their breath.
Sure.
You can get injured in any game. That's true. But they'd hate to see one of their players injured in a game like this, especially if it's the conditions that contribute to it. And center field Diaza with the catch. So now to the bottom of the fourth, closing in on making this an official game. Welcome back to this WBC Championship telecast presented by Dove Men Plus Care with Jim Codd and Tom Verducci. I'm Bob Costas. We're in San Francisco. The Dominican Republic leads Puerto Rico by a score of 2-0. This is pretty close to what you could call a downpour now. A while ago, a member of the grounds crew had a conversation with Ted Barrett, kind of updating him on what the radar shows, and we'll play that back for you in just a moment. Barrett being the plate umpire.
Interesting to see what approach the Dominican hitters take. You don't want to think that a 2-0 lead is safe, but yet you'd probably like to say, let's make 3 quick outs, get out in the field and see if we can hold this lead.
Guy at the plate right now, Encarnacion, is the man who gave them the lead with a 2-run double to right center field in the bottom of the first.
Yeah, during the season, the priorities, for the most part, clubs are saying, let's get the gate in. You know, I've played in games. I think Terry Francona, his career was altered in a game in St. Louis back in the early 80s when he slipped on a wet warning track, tore up his knee. Good curveball.
Orgus records the strikeout, and here's what we recorded earlier.
Start of it. Heavier stuff's going to come down about 10-15 minutes. And then could be heavy like NLCS type. That's what the radar guy, that's what the guy told me. I don't know if it'll be that heavy for about 10 or 15 minutes.
It'll be heavy for about 10 or 15?
Yeah. But I don't know for certain. It's a yellow band.
Right.
It's not orange or red, so we could miss the top, but it looks like it's going to hit us.
Well, here's the story. In the top of the fifth, Alex Rios, Carlos Rivera, and Andy Gonzalez are the scheduled hitters for Puerto Rico. If the Dominican Republic gets out of that half inning with the lead, this is an official game at that point.
And as Tom pointed out to Tom Verducci earlier, we talked to Tony Pena yesterday, and we have a habit of saying to managers, well, if you have the lead after 6, you know, you've got a good bullpen to go to. But Tony said, no, not 6, 4, with all the weapons he has.
2-1 Ramirez, who's just 4 for 21 in the WBC, but 2 of his 4 hits have been home runs. A year ago, he hit .257 combined between the Marlins and the Dodgers with 24 homers. But now at age 29, in what should be the prime of his career, he hasn't really fulfilled his abundant potential, at least not yet. Fly ball into shallow center, digging hard for it, Pagan, and he won't get there. Big turn at first by Ramirez, and he'll hold there. As he goes skidding after it, it's close to being a water slide situation.
Well, out of the off the end of the bat, and that's just not good professional base running right there. Hanley Ramirez should be on second base. His hitting, you talked about, is the big leg kick. that pitchers have been beating him on the high fastball. But see right there, that ball looped out, and he should be on second base right now. No excuse for that.
One-time batting champ who didn't sustain that level, has kind of regressed. Still a very valuable player, but has never quite consistently maintained that level that so many foresaw for him.
And I think that high leg kick has caused a lot of hitters to kind of alter that a little bit, as pitchers have figured out if they don't get that front foot down in a hurry, they can beat them with a good fastball. I'm sure the Dominican base runners and maybe Alfredo Griffin, their first base coach, will at some point say, hey, that's a balk move. It's very close. You have to step toward first and not spin. And Burgess very close to what they would call a spin move. Again, back to Hanley Ramirez, Bob. You can't really use the wet field as an excuse there, because he was just jogging down to first base, maybe thinking it was going to be a harmless fly ball to center. Might not be a factor in a game like this, but still it's not a good habit to get into. Most big league managers, they won't have a lot of rules, but one they have is run hard until you're out.
And Ramirez does not always follow that rule. He's had issues both running the bases and in the field that way, which have angered both managers and teammates from time to time. Swing and a miss, strike three, so Cruz is retired. And we'll check again with Tom.
Well, as we saw in that replay with Pagan in center field with the water contrails popping up behind him, field is obviously getting wet, but the mound seems to be in pretty good condition. Burgos has not asked for any drying agents to come out there. That's usually the first sign that the mound has been compromised. He's making sure he keeps his spikes clean in between pitches. But right now it looks like the infield and the mound are in fairly good shape.
2 strikeouts in the inning for Borges. Here's Santana. Grounded to first, his first time up.
Yeah, the point Tom makes, and Ted Barrett has walked out there repeatedly, is again an instant back in the 80s when John Candelaria, great left-hander, slipped on the mound in St. Louis and injured a leg and was out for a period of time. They don't want that to happen. You got to be able to get your footing out there, and they'll check the batter's box for the hitters too. The outfielders are the last guys they consider. They can run through puddles, but they're going to say, we want good footing in the batter's box and on the mound.
Lifted wide of first. Rivera and the second baseman Kalua. You talked earlier, Kitty, about Ramirez's base running and how he should have been at second base on that little bloop in the center field. He was picked off last night in their win against the Netherlands. And an inning back, Borges picked Ibar off first, so Ramirez ought to be mindful of all that. As he takes a modest lead, held by Rivera.
Keeping the ball boy busy over there in the third base dugout, Ted Barrett. He's going to get a new supply of dry baseballs. Anything that hits the dirt.
Well, Borges strikes out the side. Alvarado, the starter, had a terrible time in the first, his only inning of work. Borges, out of the bullpen, has been very effective, keeping it reasonably close. This World Baseball Classic Championship telecast is brought to you by DirecTV. If you call yourself a sports fan, you got to get DirecTV. Call 1-800-DirecTV. And by the Dominican Republic. The vacation of your dreams is closer than you think. Dominican Republic has it all. And Chevrolet, find new roads. Even the mascot has to seek cover. His head is so large he requires something closer to a tent than an umbrella.
Well, they put some of the drying agent in the batter's boxes. The mound appeared to be all right. Ted Barrett, the home plate umpire and the groundskeeper, checked it out. And I'm sure Carlos Santana will be firing down those signals in a hurry.
Ball one from Deduno. With all the superstar ball players that have come out of the Dominican Republic, Samuel Deduno, a guy with a limited and spotty major league history to this point, could become a very celebrated young man on the island if this continues tonight. Of course, how long we can continue in this rain is the big question.
And even without rain, it's a pitch-to-pitch, inning-to-inning deal for Deduno because of his erratic control.
But tonight he has struck out 4 while walking only 1. That's through 4 innings, with Rios leading off here in the 5th. In there for a strike.
Tony Pena, who you just saw in your picture with a towel wrapped around him, he'd rather not send one of his relievers down to the bullpen in this rain and begin to loosen up. But one base runner, he may be forced to do that.
Walked him. His second walk. He walked Beltran to start the 4th, but then Molina grounded into a double play. Now up comes Carlos Rivera, representing the tying run.
You know, they have batting cages underneath all these new ballparks. And instead of going to the bullpen, there might be enough room for a pitcher just to go underneath there and warm up where it's dry.
Well, you would think that it would be the Dominican Republic that would be looking to move things along, but they're concerned with the footing here for Deduno, so they're taking time to do a little landscaping work.
Yeah, the new ballparks have that scraper behind the mound there where you can walk back and get the mud out of your spikes. Rosin bags are non-factory. You ought to have that in your pocket right now. All that's going to do is get wet. Won't be worth anything.
Rivera struck out swinging his first time. Here's Tom.
Yeah, Jim, you mentioned about the batting cages. The ones are right behind the dugouts here. And in fact, it's a great ballpark to do some stealth warming up. Tim Lincecum did that last year in the postseason for the Giants. Remember, there's no bullpen sitting area here, so the relievers already are in the dugout. They can go in the cage to warm up.
Balls and a strike to Carlos Rivera. Enthusiasm here dampened literally and figuratively. No Team USA. Large contingent of Japanese fans for the first semifinal, but then that squad was eliminated. Large Japanese population in the San Francisco Bay Area. So baseball fans find any competition as the ball skips away and Rios is able to make it up to second base. You know, guys like us find any baseball competition, especially involving some of the best players in the world, interesting. But what may be lost on some U.S. fans who view this with moderate interest is how much it means in the Dominican Republic and in Puerto Rico. And so you'd hate to have the championship decided in an abbreviated game.
Yes, but those are the rules here for the World Baseball Classic. Now they'll get some drying agent out on the mound. And Octavio Dotel will head down to the bullpen to begin to loosen. There you can see the mud on the bottom of Samuel Deduno's spikes. Used to keep a tongue depressor behind the mound for, you know, you get down on one knee, and now they have the rubber scraper. But the last thing you want as a pitcher, that lead foot, you want to be able to plant it and have it stick and not slide for a couple of reasons. One, you don't want to pull a hamstring. Also, when your foot slides, you're probably going to lose control of the baseball.
Well, as they tend to the mound, Deduno's going to stay loose. There are two aspects to the World Baseball Classic, at least two. It's an international competition, and to many of the nations, it means a great deal. You see the enthusiasm in the dugouts and in some of the post-game celebrations, and as Tom mentioned at the beginning of this telecast, some 74% of households in Puerto Rico watched at least part of last night's game, and they're showing this game tonight in theaters and in a stadium in San Juan. So you have that aspect of it. But we also have to be honest, it's also been created as a marketing tool in an ongoing attempt to globalize baseball. So if you ask Bud Selig, gave him truth serum, would you like to see at least once a team from the Pacific Rim? Well, Japan did win the first two WBCs, but would you like to see China, let's say? Would you like to see them get good enough overall as a baseball playing nation to make it to a semifinal or a final? Think of the marketing opportunities there.
Yes.
Think of what the presence of Yao Ming in the NBA did to the popularity and the further globalization of that sport. That's part of what the WBC is about.
No question.
Well, they've improved things at least a little bit for Deduno, and on his first pitch as action resumes, there's a fly ball to right. Nelson Cruz circles it and takes it, and Rios remains at second base with one out.
And along with your thought, the World Baseball Classic, despite Team USA not being in it, it has accomplished that. It is really, I know from being in Australia and New Zealand, Australia did not make it to the final 16 this year, but even though it's still a minor sport, those that are interested in it over there, the players, they have players like Grant Belfour, Travis Blackley. Now let's look at Deduno's foot. See it slide just a little bit. Had a 1977 playoff game played in a downpour in Philadelphia. Tommy John pitched for the Dodgers, and it was a bit of an advantage for TJ because he was not a power pitcher. He just kind of put his foot down and threw the ball. Steve Carlton, on the other hand, suffered a little bit from that wet mouth. I'll tell you, I don't know if it's changeup, curveball, or what he's throwing, but it's got a lot of break to it. And again, you're going to see his foot plant and then slide ever so slightly. That's a Tim Lincecum type stride.
But unlike Lincecum, who's 5'11", Deduno is 6'3". This ball is hit into the air toward the gap in left center field. On the run and making the catch is Diaz. A nice over-the-shoulder grab, and back to second is Rios.
Boy, that was a nice I mean, this ball was smoked, and you can see Diaz, he's running like he's going to cut it off, and all of a sudden he has to run like a post pattern. He has to start taking off toward the end zone, and through the raindrops and everything, tracks it down to the delight of Deduno. Outstanding play. Could be a game saver with the rain coming down.
You saw how deflated Gonzalez was as he rounded first base and stared out toward Diaz. He really stung that one and came away empty. Here's Feliciano. Jesus slapped an opposite field single back in the third. Here's the reaction by Gonzalez. Thought he had a gapper. Diaz denied it. One out from an official game.
Yeah, he took a deep breath. He got a nice break there. Went from a 3-1 count to a 2-2 count. It looked like Feliciano chased a pitch out of the strike zone.
Got a little piece of it, and it holds at 2-2. Again, Tom Verducci.
Yeah, I spoke with the grounds crew down here, and they're actually encouraged about the forecast now that the heavy stuff is just about run through here, and after that, it doesn't look that bad. They feel really good about playing 9 innings tonight.
Let's hope they're right. Another 2-2 to Feliciano. Way outside, and Santana saves the wild pitch.
See, the rosin bag is wet. There's nothing to get really a good grip on your finger, and that just squirted right out of Duno's hand. Wow. They're sending, as you mentioned a while ago, they're sending Santana to the mound, and you would think what they'd want to do is get another pitch. Maybe they, if they're looking ahead and figuring it's going to be a 9-inning game, give Dotel a little more time to get ready, but he's standing on the mound in the bullpen and appears to be ready.
Rios away from second, and the 3-2 pitch walked him. Second walk of the inning, third of the game. And that was the 71st pitch thrown by Duno on this rainy night.
Yeah, and a low percentage pitch. You'd think with a 2-run lead, and they're just trying to get one more out to at least make it official, they'd let him try to throw his fastball in the strike zone. Misses with the breaking ball. And now he has to face Pagan.
Take a look at the outfield alignment. Diaz hasn't played pretty much straight away. A half step to the right field side of second base. And now a conference on the mound. Some of the fans booing. Pena finding it amusing. What I was starting to say, Nelson Cruz has Pagan played way off the line. So a ball hit into the gap in right center or down the line in right with 2 out would very likely tie this game. Tony Pena, manager of the year with the Kansas City Royals, actually had a plus +500 season with them back in '03.
Managers don't often give a pitcher a chance to talk themselves into staying in the game, but it almost looked like he was saying, "You okay? You got him?" And this Dono gave him a nod, which, with all the weapons he's got in his bullpen, is not something you'd expect him to do.
Pagan is 1 for 2, singled and grounded out. Just to finish up on Tony Pena, who of course was a terrific catcher with the Pirates and the Cardinals, Indians, other teams, frequently an all-star. In the last several years has been a coach with the Yankees. The 1-0 pitch. So take a look at how much room there is off the line and then the gap all the way to that 421 sign in right center.
Those numbers you see are what would be standard straight up defense. Deeper at second, deeper in right.
Shakes Santana off, now has the one he wants. And Barrett gives him the outside corner, and Pagan stalks away talking to himself.
They wanted the pitch inside, and Santana did a nice job of framing it and getting the call.
Rios and Feliciano. The Puerto Rican team has good speed on the bases now.
Yeah, in the rhythm of this game, without challenging Feliciano on 3-2, the rhythm of this game has gone away from Dodano and Santana. You know, they had a nice pace going. He had good control. Now he's gotten very tentative. Gets Pagan to chase a bad pitch there. Turn a 3-1 count into a 2-2 count.
The rain has noticeably subsided. Or is it subsided noticeably?
Either one.
Either way, it's not raining as hard. Swing and a miss for strike 3. The tag is applied by Santana. And the Dominican Republic gets out of it in the 5th. Official game, but as you heard Tom Verducci say, the forecast indicates we're likely to get the full 9 in. After 4.5, Diduno and the Dominicans leading it 2-0.
Well, back at AT&T Park, Angel Pagan inning-ending strikeout, and check out the emotion of Team Dominican. Starting with Diduno and then the entire bench, and I don't think Pagan took kindly to it. Now, we have seen during this entire classic a lot of emotion showed by the Dominican, not just after a win, but after big outs, and that seems to be their style. Sometimes it'll annoy other teams, and Bob, I don't know if you recall, there's Reyes, who is the leader of that crew. I don't know if you recall a hockey announcer from Minnesota, Al Shaver.
Yes.
Who did the North Stars games, and he had a sports show, and I always loved the way he signed off, and I took it to heart. When you lose, say little. When you win, say less. I don't think that plays anymore.
It doesn't play anymore in general, and certainly the tone, at least for some of these teams, the WBC has been one of exuberance, and
yes,
regular season major league protocols do not apply.
Yeah, I can remember when the Yankees clinched the pennant in Minnesota in the 60s, and they just shook hands on the foul line, went into the clubhouse, and went about their business, because, you know, they're used to winning every year anyway. But those times have changed, in particular here in the World Baseball Classic. A lot of emotion.
Here's Moises Sierra as Borges remains in there for Puerto Rico.
There must be a lot of fans of Team Puerto Rico right now saying, why didn't they start this guy? That's all. That's usually the thing when the starter gives up a couple runs, and here comes Burgess pitching very well for the next 4 innings, and saying, boy, they should have started him. As Ricky Bonas said, he's got 4 good pitches, shown excellent control.
In 3 innings so far, he's struck out 4, including striking out the side in the 4th. And there's a 5th strikeout. He's fanned 3 in a row as he gets Sierra looking to start the bottom of the 5th. He's allowed only 2 hits, and one of those was a bloop, and he hasn't walked anybody.
Good movement on that fastball, and if our strike zone graphic is accurate there, that pitch a little bit off the plate, you may see, as you mentioned earlier, Ted Barrett be a little liberal with that strike zone.
There's De Aza laying down a bunt. It'll take a great play to get him, and they don't. Gonzalez barehanded it, but Diaza beat it out.
Boy, played it as well as he could. Perfectly position. Barehand pick. Nice scoop on the other end by Carlos Rivera. And Diaza just gets the foot down before Rivera makes the catch.
Back to the top for Reyes, who's doubled and flied to left. Reyes, four-time All-Star, 2011 National League batting titleist when a member of the Mets. Has 3 times led the National League in triples. 3 times led in stolen bases with a high of 78. Now in the American League as a member of the Blue Jays. Diving back is Diaza. Look at the American League East. The Yankees beset by advancing age and injuries. The Red Sox coming off a disastrous season. The usual powers, question marks surrounding them. Tampa always resourceful. You never know. Baltimore had a green season a year ago. Can they sustain it? They won an uncommon number of extra innings and 1-run games last year. So Toronto makes huge moves, bringing in Melky Cabrera, bringing in Jose Reyes, adding R.A. Dickey, Josh Johnson.
Could make a case in that division for all 5 teams, any of them finishing first or last. Should be pretty competitive this year.
Throw in Mark Burley too, and Jose Bautista missed a number of games last year. He should be back for the full season. Formidable lineup. Pitch out, nothing on. You looked at a team like the Blue Jays in the American League East, and you said really their best hope for years and years would be to petition to be relocated to the Central, maybe.
Right.
But now, given the circumstances of other teams and the roster that they've put together, they seem to have a legitimate shot at it.
Might be on the run here after a pitch out. Trying to do it. Ooh, nice pitch. I'll tell you, Ricky Bonas is right. So you're going to hear about this young man. Good control of his off-speed pitches. Too low and a bit outside.
To this point, Iram Borges has pitched 11 2/3 scoreless innings in this WBC. A bouncer, he can't reach it. It winds up in Falou's hands. The throw to first gets Reyes, but in a moment of indecision, he allows the lead runner to advance.
Yeah, again, a slow-paced game baseball is, but a quick decision was required. I think if Falou could do it over again, he would have run Diaza back toward first base just a bit longer. Reyes a little slow getting out of the box with the tough striking, and all of a sudden he said, I've got to go to first. And a good play by Diaza in hesitating enough and getting into second. Rivera had no chance to get him there.
Here's the deal. By the time he threw it to first, they had no chance to go back to second for the double play, so you got to get the lead runner.
Should have run him back a little bit farther. His thinking was, well, I'll throw to first and we'll get him at second. Didn't work out that way.
He had 2 choices. Could have run him back or could have just turned and flipped to the shortstop for the force. we've got Diaz now at second with 2 out. Toward the seats and out of play.
Well, he had 3 decisions, and unfortunately for Puerto Rico, he made the worst one right here. The first one is go to second and try to make a conventional double play. The second is keep running him back and tag him. And instead he thought, well, I'll get Reyes and we'll get Diaz at second. That was his third choice, and that was the wrong one, because now Diaz is in scoring position.
0-2 to Ibar, who had a sacrifice in the first, then singled and was picked off first in the third.
That's why when nowadays you can mic players and you'll hear the conversation down on the field, and it's pretty intense chatter, because when you're sitting in the stands or up here, you know, it just looks like nobody's doing anything. The game rolls along at a slow pace, but all of a sudden the ball's hit, and you got to react quickly and know ahead of time what you're going to do.
Brewer fans and Brewer personnel watching this game with particular interest. Borges is their property, and he has been impressive throughout this WBC, most certainly including tonight.
Getting some counsel right there from Yadier Molina.
Robinson Cano is on deck if Ibar can keep the inning going. Bluff throw to second from Molina. You know, in addition to how well he commands a game and brings a pitcher along, Molina last year threw out an almost unheard of 48% of would-be base stealers.
Yeah, that is as some asset for any team to have a catcher that can do that. He has the confidence of his pitching staff. Our colleague John Smoltz talking about pitching to Yadier Molina and how comfortable he can make you feel as a pitcher.
And how uncomfortable he can make a base runner feel. I mean, throw in the occasional unexpected throw in behind a runner at first base for the pickoff. All the wild pitches he saves, his ability to block the plate. Line drive, base hit to right field. Steaming around third base and heading home to score is Diaz. And in with a double is Ibar. Dominican Republic, and considering the strength of their bullpen and how hard runs have been to come by in general in this WBC, this seems like a very large hill for the Puerto Rican team to climb.
And with the wet track and the slow track, as quickly as Rios got over there, that decision on the potential double play looms a little larger, because I don't know if Diaz could have scored from first base on that.
In that case, it would have been Reyes, because Diaz would have been changed for Reyes.
And as fast as Reyes is, but it's pretty sloppy out there right now on the infield, and Rios got over to that ball rather quickly.
Yeah, far from guaranteed that he would have scored from first. Would have been interesting to see.
You saw them waving frantically in your picture there down to the bullpen waving the cap to make sure that Dotel knew he's in the game. Samuel Deduno's night is over. 5 shutout innings, 2-hit baseball.
Being congratulated. And Dotel, one of the most well-traveled of all major leaguers, will be in the game shortly. There's a slow roller foul. 1-2 to Cano, who's been walked intentionally and fly to left. Hitting exactly 500 in the WBC now, 15 for 30.
Tony Pena got effective relief pitching again last night, and the key was his pitchers got quick outs. Pedro Strop didn't have to throw a lot of pitches. He's available tonight. Rodney available again.
Fisted into shallow center field. And coming over from left to make the catch in front of Pagan is Feliciano. But the Dominicans tack on another one and lead it after 5, 3-0. On a soggy night in San Francisco, Samuel Deduno has the windbreaker on, and his evening is complete. Stands to be the winner. 5 strong innings of work, and replaced now by Octavio Dotel, who, in addition to his work now with his home country in the WBC, has been with 13 major league teams. At present, a member of the Detroit Tigers. Miguel Tejada is in the game at third, replacing Hanley Ramirez.
I thought there are more now, but I thought one of the great bullpens in recent years was Dotel, Brad Lidge, and Billy Wagner down in Houston.
All nasty.
Yeah. Of course, Cincinnati fans are saying, how about the nasty boys? Dibble, Charlton, Randy Myers, and now so many teams. Look at the Baltimore Orioles and all these teams, the ones that have guys that can get those last 6 to 9 outs, usually the teams that win.
One and 2 to Irving Thalou.
I remember in the 60s when Johnny Sain, my favorite pitching coach and a great pitching coach that produced so many 20-game winners. There's what Bob was talking about, 13 different teams for Dotel. He said back then, the day is going to come when a pitcher that can just get a 1, 2, 3 inning is going to be very valuable. And we said, are you kidding? I thought you had to pitch 9. And now we're seeing what he meant.
Center field, Diaz turning and running it down. With the rain letting up a little bit, not entirely, some of the fans who had retreated to cover have come back down into the lower part of the ballpark. Against Deduno, Beltran struck out swinging and then walked. On the first pitch, he rolls it to Cano. 2 out in the Puerto Rico 6th.
This has been quite an impressive display. We've showed you some of the numbers by this Dominican bullpen. It has to be demoralizing. I compare it to '96 when Mariano Rivera was a setup man for the Yankees for John Wetland, and I know from talking to other managers, they just said, you know, it's a 6-inning game. If you don't get the lead or get in it, and there's the number, 35 innings, just 20 hits. So if you look at the walks and base on balls, one of the buzz stats these days, they now call it whip. Long before whip, we call it base runners per 9 innings. It's the same thing. You add up the hits and walks, and when they just equal the innings pitched, that's about as effective as you can get. Then you add to that, they can strike out guys as well.
And here's what's behind Dotel, should they choose to use any or all of them. Santiago Casilla, who has been so effective with the Giants. Alfredo Simon, who had an ERA under 3 for the Reds a year ago. Pedro Strop, whom you mentioned, who was part of that ultra effective Baltimore bullpen last year. And then Fernando Rodney, who has closed out most of their victories in this WBC, and who went Dennis Eckersley a decimal point better with an ERA of 0.60 last year for Tampa, saving 48 out of a possible 50.
Now, I know they're good, but I'd be a little careful about celebrating and dancing till you get that 27th out. One of the taller players in that picture right there is Herrera, who pitched 2 innings last night. He throws harder than any of them. He throws about 98 or 99. But you don't dance till you get the 27th out, or the umpire says the game's called.
Dotel's 0-2 to Yadier Molina. Hit right back to him. He virtually runs it all the way over there himself before underhanding to Encarnacion. A quick 1-2-3-6. Then they are not heeding your advice.
They seldom do.
The wisdom of the ages is no more.
United States of America.
República Dominicana.
Mexico. Nippon.
Venezuela. Canada.
Puerto Rico. Welcome to the World Baseball Classic.
Bienvenido al Clásico Mundial. Where every team.
全てのチームは
En donde cada equipo.
Where every team
is a home team.
It's a home team.
Is a home team.
Bottom of the 6th inning in the championship game. It's been raining steadily since the 2nd inning, but there's been no stoppage. Roll towards short. Here's Aviles with the long throw across the diamond in time to get Encarnacion.
You can see Mike Aviles shake his hand. Look at his hand. Just after that ball's rolled out there on the grass for a while, it's pretty tough to get a good grip on it. And he just threw a bar of soap over there to Rivera, and he picked it out of the dirt nicely. It squirted out of his hand.
So Miguel Tejada with his first at-bat of the game. Hanley Ramirez was 1 for 2 while he was in there. He jammed his right hand diving for a ball to his left earlier in the game, and that might account for why he eventually came out. Tejada, the 6-time All-Star and 2002 American League MVP, but a member of the Oakland A's. Now at age 38, and after that being released by the Baltimore Orioles in July of last year, he's a member of the Kansas City Royals, caught on kind of as a backup guy, modest contract. Here's what happened to Ramirez back in the 3rd inning. Jammed his thumb, and we'd have to guess that's the reason he's not completing this game.
You see him grabbing that knuckle on his throwing hand, thumb.
The 2-1 to Tejada. Cuts and misses.
Over 90% first pitch strikes by Eram Borges. Just the opposite of Edinson Volquez last night, even though once he got past the first inning, he shut down the Netherlands.
The Dutch actually held a brief 1-0 lead before the favored Dominicans rallied and won 4-1. Tejada's career has not been without controversy. He was named in the Mitchell report, subject of a congressional investigation at one point. But his love of the game has never been in doubt. And so it's really not surprising that a guy who's made as much money as he has and has been an All-Star and an MVP would try to keep playing as long as he possibly can, even in a reduced role now as a Royal backup. Drops the bat in disgust as he lifts a hop into shallow right, which Rios takes.
Now, I understand he'd like to get into coaching or managing. I think the story when Miguel first came up is how he played baseball with a cardboard box for a glove in his early days. Dominican, when you go back to Epi Guerrero scouting for the Blue Jays when they first signed Tony Fernandez and all those great, it was just a shortstop factory for years. Now it's complete baseball in all positions.
Nelson Cruz with 2 out. Takes one on the corner for a strike.
Started with the Ozzie Virgil Sr. 1953 was the first major league player. Played for the Tigers, and of course the most famous throughout the first pitch last night. Most famous first player, Fully Baloo.
And then just came a torrent of All-Star and perhaps Hall of Fame players. Only Juan Marichal has been elected to the Hall so far, but there are those lining up behind him with the credentials to be considered. Whacked into left center field. On the run is Pagan. It's over his head and one bounce against the wall. And on his way to second with a 2-out double is Cruz.
Well, it might be time for Edwin Rodriguez to go get him. Burgess has been very effective. That pitch inside part of the plate. Nelson gets the barrel to it. Even though he didn't start the game, he's allowed to go 95 pitches, and he's up there, I would say, around the 70 limit right now. Ricky Bonas
68, so you're pretty close with your guess. Carlos Santana, the switch hitting catcher, is the scheduled hitter. Now Ted Barrett, the plate umpire, walks out toward the mound and says this conversation has gone on long enough.
It might be a combination of giving the relief pitchers a little more time to get ready, though they have been throwing for, or pitch around Santana and go after the. You assume the game is over because the Dominican has been so dominant, but if you're Edwin Rodriguez and Team Puerto Rico, you pay attention, keep this a 3-0 game, and give your team a chance. Go back.
Santana's 0 for 2. He has a couple of home runs in the WBC.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised they're pitching to him right here.
Moises Sierra on deck, first base open. Cruz at second with 2 out.
Signaling down the bullpen. Are they both ready? Lefty and righty. Xavier Cedeno, the left-hander. Even though they're not walking him intentionally, it looks like one of those old pitch around him. I would think he'd have the green light right here if he sees something he likes.
Takes it up the knees and on the corner, 3-1. And he walks it. So that will give Sierra a chance to pretty much break the game open. If the Dominican Republic, all things considered, hasn't done that already. Sierra has flied to deep center and then struck out looking. But he'll be looking at a different pitcher as Rodriguez is going to go to his bullpen. And we're going to go to break. Back to San Francisco after this. You got time. Do the statues. Each of the countries competing for the championship of the WBC have a connection to the Major League team hosting the semifinals and finals. Juan Marichal statue outside, the great Dominican right-hander, and Orlando Cepeda, Hall of Famer from Puerto Rico.
Cha-cha.
We thought it might be fun to take a look at the all-time team from the Dominican Republic and then from Puerto Rico. Some of this is subjective, but this is what we put together. Sammy Sosa and Manny Ramirez each have Hall of Fame numbers that might not get them to Cooperstown because of other factors, but we put them on this all-time team. Pedro Martinez certainly will follow Juan Marichal into Cooperstown. Now here's the all-time Puerto Rican team. Little thin in the pitching ranks, although Willie Hernandez did win the Cy Young Award in 1984 as part of the world champion Detroit Tiger team.
And I think the MVP award, both. There's Cha-Cha, Orlando Cepeda.
Yeah, he was the Cy Young Award and MVP award winner that year. Here is Jose De La Torre out of the bullpen. He's recorded 16 outs in this WBC in 5 1/3 innings of work, and 11 of those 16 outs have been on strikeouts.
Property of the Red Sox, struck out a hitter per inning last year. Moving up the ladder in about 3 different classifications.
Facing versus Sierra. Earlier you were remarking how unusual it is to see a pitcher under 6 feet tall these days. Well, De La Torre is listed as just 5'9". When we looked at those all-time teams a moment ago, Juan Marichal was only about 5'10". Pedro Martinez, 5'11" maybe.
My boyhood hero, Bobby Shantz, was 5'7". Won an MVP as a pitcher.
That, by the way, is the ideal height for an American man, according to research I have done myself. 5'7". There's your midpoint.
Well,
that's your ideal.
It's good for a pro golfer. Height is not necessarily an advantage there.
Think of Mike Weir, Gary Player.
Yeah. Tom Watson.
De La Torre's 1-2 to Sierra. Foul to the seats. Now there's Juan Marichal. Never won a Cy Young Award because of his contemporaries.
Right, because of Sandy Koufax.
And Bob Gibson.
Right. Oh boy, what a pitcher. One of my favorite games to reflect on is the 16-inning 1-0 battle between he and Warren Spahn.
Each went the distance.
Yeah, Willie Mays broke it up with a home run in the 16th. I don't think they counted pitches that night.
Tap foul. Marichal talked to me about the game one time, and he said that Alvin Dark, the manager of the Giants, said, I'm going to take you out of the game. We're in the 13th, 14th inning. And Marichal was just a youngster, and he said, I pointed across the way. I said, you see that man right there? He's 42 years old.
Yeah.
Pointing to Spahn. He says, if he's not coming out, I'm not coming out. The thing about Marichal, one of the many things, he threw about 7 or 8 different pitches, but he threw them from so many different arm angles that he actually had about 24 different pitches when you think about it.
And pinpoint control.
Did he check his swing? He did not. He is gone. And so is the Dominican Republic in the bottom of the 6th. But they're up 3-0 as we head for the 7th in the WBC title game. Well, Harold Reynolds is old school. He trusts his eyes and his baseball instincts. Ryan Kenny, the Sabre Patrician School. Now old school battles new school every weekday at 4 Eastern on MLB Now. It premieres on April 3rd. There's a sneak preview April 1st at 8 on MLB Network. International Press Corps chronicling this one. Championship game of the WBC led by the Dominican. 3-0. As we move to the 7th, 39-year-old Octavio Dotel came on in the 6th, remains on the mound to face Aviles, Rios, and Rivera. It's sharply through the middle for a leadoff single. So Aviles is 1 for 3. And Team Puerto Rico tries to get something going here in the 7th. Even though it's still raining, Ted Barrett, the plate umpire, got an update, and it's pretty optimistic. Listen.
How we doing?
Looking good. We're on the tail end. We've been on the tail end. It's just all green radar for light rain from here on out. We'll keep checking the mound. You let us know how your plate's doing. We'll keep it going.
All right.
All right?
Sounds good.
How about that? Just show them your phone. You got the weather report. Technology, unbelievable.
Pedro Strop is warming up in the bullpen for the Dominican Republic.
I would expect the day is not too far down the road as you look at Strop, hard-throwing right-hander, the Baltimore Orioles. The pitching coach will go to the mound with his iPhone and look at the pitcher and the catcher and get it out like the groundskeeper did and just say, look, here's the pattern. This is how we're going to pitch this guy. And it'll all be right there on the screen. Bill Castro, the Dominican pitching coach.
They check it first, but Rios did not commit. So he's ahead on the count, 3-1.
Yeah, the best opportunity for quite some time that Puerto Rico's had a chance to get back in it. Nobody out, runner at first, and 3-1 count. Look out.
Team Puerto Rico is stranded 4 tonight. They haven't dented the plate. Rios, who had been slumping earlier in the WBC, as you see, had a homer in the semifinal win against Japan. Part of a 2-for-4 night. He struck out and walked tonight. And the 3-2 from Dotel. Walked it. So a single and a walk. And all of a sudden, Puerto Rico brings the tying run to the plate with nobody out in the 7th.
It's about as big a rally against this bullpen as anybody's had for quite some time. 2 men on, nobody out.
Well, Tony Pena has Pedro Strop getting ready.
When a challenge for relief pitchers on a night like tonight, and it was that way even going back to Candlestick Park. Pena out in the dugout right now. Not only raining, but it's turned cold, to get a feel and a grip on the baseball.
So things getting a bit more interesting here at AT&T Park. Strop coming in, and we're stepping aside for just a moment. Pedro Strop out of the bullpen. Carlos Rivera into the batter's box. Strop an effective 2012 with the Orioles. And he's had a strong WBC for the Dominican Republic. He's appeared in 5 games and he's gotten the win in 3 of them.
Not good numbers for Team Puerto Rico in these situations.
If the Dominican Republic holds on to this lead and wins this game, it's a pretty convincing championship. They will have gone 8-0 in the tournament, and they will have beaten their championship game opponent, Puerto Rico, 3 times. 3 out of the 8. Pretty tough to argue with that. Vilas at second. Rios away from first. And Rivera fouls it back. There's a viewing party going on at Roberto Clemente Coliseum in San Juan. And to this point, they haven't had too much to cheer about, but they've got something going here in the 7th. Another foul back. Puerto Rico's governor, Alejandro Garcia Padilla, is in attendance. So is the mayor of San Juan, Carmen Cruz. Roberto Clemente was actually from the city or town of Carolina, which is located about 10 minutes outside San Juan. Called strike 3. So Stroke dispatches the first hitter he faces.
Yeah, good comebacker by Pedro Strop. Such an effective pitch. I think John Smoltz, Greg Maddux in their Atlanta days did that so well. Fastball looked like it's coming inside to Rivera, but nothing more important to a pitcher than late movement. And that moved clearly back across the inside corner.
Team goes to its bench and sends up Pedro Valdez as a pinch hitter. So it's Valdez batting for Gonzalez.
There's that comeback fastball again.
Valdez down in the count, 0-2. Played all of last year in the Mexican League. 39 years old. He's played 53 career games in the major leagues. Puerto Rico has some recognizable big league names, including genuine stars like Beltran and Yadier Molina, and guys of significant accomplishment like Angel Pagan and Mike Aviles. But they don't have the overall depth, as witness the fact that they have to go to their bench for a 39-year-old guy like Pedro Valdez, who strikes out swinging. A guy with almost no major league resume.
Looked like the Strop changeup there after the good moving fastball. Need to bring Bernie Williams out of retirement.
So now 2 on and 2 out for Feliciano, who has singled and walked. In comes Stroke to strike out Rivera looking, and then the pinch hitter Valdez swinging.
Well, if I wouldn't take one right here from Feliciano and just make Stroke throw a strike, you got Pagan on deck.
Wow.
Got the benefit of a borderline call right there. Puerto Rico, no way.
And Barrett getting an earful from the Puerto Rican bench.
You see, there's so much movement on that pitch. When it went past Feliciano's front knee, it was knee high. But when the catcher caught it, it looked like it was really low.
Popped back to third. Tejada into foul ground near the bullpen, and a tumbling catch right on the bullpen mound, or actually the home plate, to which you'd throw when warming up in the bullpen. And Tejada, who replaced Ramirez, who jammed his thumb, maybe in some difficulty himself, makes the play, comes down hard. The first 2 men reached for Puerto Rico in the 7th, but then they went nowhere. They strand them both and still trail 3-0. We'll check on Tejada when we come back. This WBC Championship telecast is presented by Dove Men Plus Care with Jim Cotta, Tom Verducci, and Bob Costas. Some changes now as we move to the bottom of the 7th. The new pitcher is Xavier Cedeno, and there's the new third baseman, Luis Figueroa. They pinch hit for Andy Gonzalez in the top half of the inning. So it's Figueroa at third and Cedeno to the mound. He's been in 47 career big league games with the Astros. This is his 7th appearance in the WBC.
A lot of strikeouts, more than one an inning, and I would assume most of those against left-hand hitters coming in this specialty situation. Hometown hero warming up for the Dominican team, Santiago Casilla, member of the Giants.
Piazza is out swinging as Cedeno fans the first man he faces.
And there's a lot of left-hand pitchers like Cedeno that are hoping that scouts get a look at them. J.C. Romero, for example, who does not have a contract yet. Lefties that could come in and get a left-hand hitter out like he just did. Valuable commodity in big league teams.
Reyes turns around to the right side and shoots one toward the gap in right center field, and he can run forever on this one if he wants to. He's got a double. He turns second. He heads for third. He dives in, but it's not necessary. Could have gone in standing. A triple easily. And they will not wait till the game has been clinched to celebrate. They've been celebrating since they set foot on the field, and it continues.
And they're backing it up with their play.
So Reyes has a double and now a triple tonight.
Puts it on cruise control right there and slides just for effect.
A slide, a wave, and a pump. And now Ibar, who's 2 for 2 with a sacrifice.
Puerto Rico forced to bring their infield in. Can't afford to give up another run.
Ibar, like Reyes, a switch hitter. After that triple by Reyes, brings to mind he might, playing in one of the few remaining artificial surface ballparks up in Toronto, he might hit a whole lot of triples in that ballpark.
Could be like the old Kansas City Park when they had so much speed. Willie Wilson, part of their 1980 World Series team.
Ball gets on the carpet, rolls to the wall in a hurry.
Marbles in the bathtub, just keeps rolling around.
Reyes away from third with 1 out. Dominicans looking to add to a 3-0 lead here in the 7th. Just foul. Puerto Rico comes up in the 8th, down at least 3 and maybe more. It's almost, when you think about it, their last true turn at bat, with Fernando Rodney waiting for them in the 9th. Rodney, a year ago, had an ERA of 0.60 for Tampa Bay. Back in 1990, Dennis Eckersley went 0.61 for Tony La Russa and the Oakland A's. So Rodney went in 1 better and saved 48 out of 50. And he's been untouchable in this WBC as well. The 1-2. Sliced foul.
And we were mentioning last night, this is after rather mediocre year in California a couple of years ago. All of a sudden he got the magic back.
Yeah, he'd had his moments with the Angels and with the Tigers, but then he turned otherworldly with the Rays. Pop-up, shallow center, back of second base, and it's the second baseman, Falou, who squeezes it, forcing Reyes to hold at third. Well, first base is open. Let's see if they want any part of Robinson Cano here. It is lefty versus lefty, and Encarnacion, right-handed batter, is on deck.
Hasn't seemed to make much difference to Robinson Cano, so he's got the luxury of pitching him very carefully, and if he walks him, you can bring a right-hander in to face Encarnacion. I noticed tonight Yadi Molina not quite the fast-paced signals that he used the other night against Japan when Mario Santiago was pitching. He put the fingers down, and the Japanese hitters with those high leg kicks, it really disrupted their timing. Much more deliberate with his pitchers tonight.
Robinson Cano's dad is part of the Dominican's coaching staff. Joselito Cano is the bullpen coach.
Pitched briefly for, I think they might have been called the California Angels at that time.
For what it may be worth in this situation, Cano hit just .239 against left-handers last year. .359 against righties.
I think that was the highest in the big leagues.
It was. Robbie's 0 for 2 tonight. He's twice fly to left with an intentional walk. Rolled toward the middle. Backhanded by Falou. Quick flip. Got it. So though his team leads 3-0, Cano has been cooled off just a little bit in this championship game. The extra few ounces added by wearing a mic did not slow Jose Reyes down, did not slow his legs down, nor his mouth. Listen.
Back in San Francisco, Yadier Molina, as Puerto Rico comes to the plate in the top of the 8th, is rallying the troops. Says, come on, we got 6 more outs. And he's gone to all of his teammates and says, let's put on a finish here.
Well, they've left 6 men on base. They have had a few opportunities.
And they get a look at a new pitcher, familiar to those fans here tonight that are Giants fans, part of 2 World Championship teams for the Giants. In fact, he was their closer before Sergio Romo took over later in the year.
And in fact, he was the winning pitcher, credited with the victory in Game 4 of the World Series last year against the Tigers, as the Giants completed what seemed like an unlikely sweep of the American League champions. He has a pair of World Series rings with the Giants in 2010 and 2012. One of many coming out of the Dominican Republic who shaved a few years off his age when he first arrived on the American scene, and then owned up to it in '06 and suddenly became 3 years older.
That used to be the trend when players reached that age when they were about to collect their pension. Then they added a few.
Cash in while you can.
Orioles had a shortstop named Willie Miranda. He was, when it came time to collect his pension, he suddenly went from like age 52 to 55 overnight.
Pagan's 1 for 3. Appeared to be taking all the way, and now the count 2-1.
Yeah, part of that Molina pep talk was probably to try to rally his troops this inning, because as you pointed out, the last inning, if they don't score now, they're going to have to look at Rodney in the ninth, who's been tough to score on for anybody.
Fernando Rodney, the hat worn at a rakish angle, and some of his teammates have followed suit. And he has that signature gesture pointing skyward after notching a save, and now that's become the victory salute for the entire team.
Carrying around the rally plantain that supposedly somebody sent him for a good luck charm. You figured out exactly what that was, right?
Thank heaven for Google. Plantain, you do not eat raw like a banana. There is a walk to Pagan to open the 8th. You don't eat it raw like a banana. It has to be cooked, and it's an ingredient used in many savory Caribbean dishes, I'm told, and according to some, a source of power. There it is, though it looks like, you know, a cousin of the banana.
One of my teammates, Cubano, Pedro Ramos, back in the early part of my career, we all lived in a complex together. He used to fix fried plantains for us on occasion. I didn't notice any added power. The fastball was still about 81 or 82.
But were they tasty?
Yes, they were.
Falou is 0 for 3. Grounded to the mound twice and flied to deep center. And Casilla has him down in the count 0-2.
Give that effective pitch that looks inside and moves back across the inside corner.
Casilla stepping off and looking Pagan back. Jose Veras is warming up in the Dominican Republic's bullpen. Carlos Beltran on deck for Puerto Rico. Miguel Tejada, who took a tumble in making a catch on a foul ball. And there you see the block by Santana. Tejada is back at third base. He's kind of twisting his body around between pitches as if he's in some kind of discomfort. He took an awkward fall in catching that foul ball an inning ago. He is the latest of many to be displeased with Ted Barrett, who has had a wide strike zone tonight.
Well, again, it's the late movement that comes back across. Of course, that one, when it went past Falou, he thought it was inside, and Santana did a good job of framing it and kind of stole the pitch for Casilla. When you hear the term framing it, those that haven't watched a lot of baseball, you know, good catchers have that ability to take a pitch a few inches off the plate and turn their glove to kind of frame it on the corner, give the umpire a good look at it.
Beltran swings on the first one, lifts a fly ball to left. Sierra in front of Diazza for the catch. Well, we mentioned Miguel Tejada. He's in the game, having replaced Hanley Ramirez, who left with an apparent injury. With more on that, here's Tom.
Well, Hanley Ramirez, we saw him jam that thumb, wrist, hand area earlier in the game. He told teammates after receiving treatment that he thinks he's fine, but as a precautionary measure, trainers did place it in a splint And I'm told that he will see Dodgers trainers tomorrow to make sure that it's not any sort of problem to pursue down the line.
Okay, Tom, thanks. Molina fouls the first one out of play. With runners on base tonight, Puerto Rico is 0 for 14. Not necessarily runners in scoring position, but with anyone anywhere on base, including Pagan at first right now, they're 0 for 14. Well, that's Veras throwing, but you got to believe they're going to see Dotel before, I meant to say Rodney, before long. And on the comebacker, Casilla finishes them off in the 8th. This World Baseball Classic Championship telecast is presented by Dove Men's Plus Care. Care for what matters, and by Dick's Sporting Goods. Every season starts at Dick's. And G.I. Joe, Retaliation, in theaters everywhere, March 28th, rated PG-13. There's technology for you. Rodney getting ready. Somebody recording it on their cell phone. And Fernando Cabrera out of the Puerto Rican bullpen. 31-year-old right-hander who spent all of last season with Buffalo, the AAA affiliate of the Mets. He's presently with the Angels organization. Between 2004 and 2010, was in the big leagues variously with the Indians, the Orioles, and the Red Sox. He's pitched for Puerto Rico in all 3 World Baseball Classics.
Edwin Rodriguez uses him as their closer, but here in the bottom of the 8th, down 3, bringing him in to try to keep it a 3-run game.
2 balls and a strike. Japan won the first 2 WBCs. Dominican Republic on the verge of winning this, the 3rd. Ground ball rolled towards second. Falou with the toss to Rivera, and that brings us to a look at this game summary presented by Dove Men Plus Care. Encarnacion with a 2-run double in the bottom of the 1st. Samuel Deduno, 29-year-old starter who's a member of the Minnesota Twins, at least he was last year, and hoping to make their opening day roster this year. Pitched 5 very effective innings and stands to be the winner. An awkward moment for Miguel Tejada, but he made the play and he stayed in the game. So as the Dominican Republic closes in on this championship, worth noting for those who haven't followed it until this point, as Tejada pops one into shallow right, and Rios makes the catch. The United States has never made it as far as the championship game and did not make it to the semifinal round this year, beaten by both of these teams. And a victory in either one of the games would have gotten them to San Francisco.
And I don't know that there's been this just the 3rd World Baseball Classic, but can't think of a more dominant performance by a pitching staff. It's almost as soon as they get the lead, it takes the life out of the opposition. A couple of late runs to beat the United States, who held it close in their game with the Dominican.
As the game moves toward its apparent conclusion, the rain now is down to a relative trickle. They played much of this game through the kind of rain that would cause a delay most of the time. But these teams, these players have to get back to their respective teams. And if it was at all possible to get this one in, they were going to do it tonight, and they've managed to. center field. Pagan scarcely has to move, and we move to the 9th. Well, ordinarily you'd say let the celebration begin in a few moments, but the celebration has pretty much been ongoing since the start of the tournament. And why not? Yeah. Hardly a single misstep for the Dominican Republic. They have been not merely excellent, they have been utterly dominant.
Yeah, they've celebrated from the start of the game once they got 2 runs as if they figured they were going to win, and I can't blame them.
Well, not just tonight, but in most of the games, as they're on the verge of going 8-0, most of the games they have been clearly superior. Most of their players play winter ball. That's not an excuse compared to anybody else. It's true of other teams in the tournament, not every team. But the fact that A, they have a star-studded roster, and B, many of these players are kind of in regular season or close to regular season shape, doesn't hurt. That may not be true of Miguel Tejada, who's been struggling, and that ball got through him. So Aviles reaches on an error.
Wow. Haven't seen Tejada play many balls and be unsure like that. Caromed off his left shin.
There's no doubt he's still feeling the effects of that tumble he took in making that catch in foul ground. The body language just kind of indicates that he's uncomfortable. So Aviles reaches on the error, and that brings up Rios.
Yeah, the dominance so far of the Dominican pitching staff, particularly the relief pitchers, it reminds me, Bob, of the first time I saw and pitched against Sandy Koufax in person in the World Series in '65. I just turned to Johnny Sane after watching him for 2 innings and said, if I give up a run, this game's over. I mean, that's how you felt. And shutting us out in Game 7, it was like that. As soon as they took a lead, it was just, you felt bad for the hitters going up there. Now, the Dominican is doing it with 4 or 5 different pitchers. That's how demoralizing it can be to a team looking at pitchers that can come in with power arms like the Dominican Republic staff.
Bouncing ball foul. A ball and 2 strikes to Alex Rios, who a year ago hit .304 with 25 homers and 91 RBIs for the White Sox.
In the World Baseball Classic, the batting average against the Dominican bullpen, 158. Those who haven't seen a lot of Fernando Rodney, does it with a live fastball. That was close. A couple of those in that area have gone for strikes tonight, and an outstanding changeup.
Shallow center, backing up from second base to make the catch is Cano. The batter is Rivera. And as you get down toward the bottom of the Puerto Rico lineup, and there's no disrespect meant by this observation, you have guys who have had brief stints in the major leagues. Guys like Rivera, who played a couple of years with the Pirates. Andy Gonzalez started the game. He was with 3 big league teams a few years ago, between '07 and '09. There's a fall off, and they haven't got much on their bench either.
Yeah, the heart of their order has Beltran, Molina, Aviles, and Rios. They have big league experience.
And they've been excellent players. Right. Especially Beltran and Molina and Pagan at the top of the order. But they just don't have the depth. Oh-2. For example, Luis Figueroa who came into the game a couple of innings ago at third base, is on deck, and apparently they're not going to pinch hit for him. He's had 18 career big league at bats and hasn't seen the big leagues in 6 years.
Not many options there. The whole ball game, from a Dominican standpoint, really was the first inning. When Reyes got him started.
They got 2 in the first when Reyes doubled, and later, after Cano was intentionally walked, Edwin Encarnacion doubled both of them home.